Teammates, we are back once again. If this is your first time listening to the Move Swiftly podcast, welcome to the number one show on innovative teamwork. Great to have you. Looking forward to having you back for more. To my regular listeners, you already know what goes down. You hit the play button and you know whether it's just myself speaking or if it's a guest, we are here to serve you in some way, shape, form, or fashion, give you some sort of gem, give you something in which you could take this moment and make the next moment just a little bit better. Just give you a little something that's going to make your life or your day even, or your, just like I said, your moment just a little bit better. Today, Heather Ferrari, we are about to dig in on all of the important elements of sales, why it's so important, why I continuously say it's a force multiplier, and why if you're going to teach anything, and especially in regards to business, sales needs to be that number one thing. It needs to be a high priority on your list. She's a business coach, has done a ton of work, and it just has a lot of experience. When I say a lot of experience, I mean it started at 8 years old when she was actually working for a parent's company. It's funny, Heather. I teach at this school. It's a school K through 5, and I was just talking to some of the third graders. I'm like, look, I'm about to interview someone right now who started her sales experience and started her journey at your age. So it's important that you tune in. So all that being said, Heather, welcome to the show. How are you?
Oh my gosh, what a great intro. Thank you so much. I am doing wonderful. Keep inspiring those kids. We
Yeah.
need them. We need them to grow businesses, to get involved in entrepreneurship. We need them to get out there and sell. It's still one of the best careers to make money in and serve people.
Hmm.
I'm so excited to be on your show today and talk about one of the things that brings me such passion in my day to day, but also being able to help people be great at it and not feel icky is also kind of important. I think we lose a lot of people in sales just
Yeah.
because they have bad training a lot of times. I hate to say it. I've been a part of that, and I've probably given some bad training because of the training I've received.
Yeah.
But I hope to inspire and encourage some people that sales isn't all bad,
Mhm.
but it is work. And so we'll dig into that as well.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, for you it started at 8 years old because you had mentioned something. I was listening to you before we started recording. You had mentioned something about how your dad created fun games, or your parents created certain activities and games in which that inspired you to do chores. They gave, maybe some incentive for you to, clean bathrooms and make it so, you're doing the chores that people look at as negative work. Now, my parents had a similar philosophy. It was my job to clean bathrooms and vacuum and do all those things. And I'd love for you to just dive in a little bit there and talk a little bit about your upbringing, because you had mentioned that it was great, but you wanted to get out and eventually start your own thing because it's only so much you could deal with that kind of intensity when it comes to working and having tasks and all that kind of stuff. So,
One thing I'm grateful for is my dad's not on YouTube, so I can say pretty much whatever. No, because
yes.
I can't have him be right? Like I can't be like, now I'm an entrepreneur, but man, I couldn't wait to leave
Right.
back in the day, right? As one. So I love that you want to dig into that because I just had a different upbringing for sure than most people have experience in especially now back in, my dad's era, a lot of people owned and operated their own businesses. Everybody was local. They had a local grocery market. That's how my grandfather started in the community that my dad still lives in, still has his business in, was a grocery market. And
Hmm.
so he grew up in that. His grandfather was a carpenter. Like, so it's just kind of in our blood to have these,
Yeah.
work for yourself mentality. I'm actually one of 7 kids as well. And so there was a lot of us running around
Mhm. Yeah, that's a
in
lot.
this
That is
business.
a
In
lot.
this business, my dad was operating 5 businesses at one time. And so when we talk about being exposed to, now not all of them are still around, and so like not just seeing them start it but also see it end, and how heartbreaking that is as well. At 8 years old, this is what I knew. I
Mhm.
knew that every Saturday we were expected to be at the business, and we called it the Secret Saturday Surprise.
Mhm.
So my dad would have like little chores, and our goal was to get the water hose because that was like the funnest job to have, was to water.
Mhm.
And I remember we got to understand money at that time as well. So we were paid, not a lot, but we were paid
Mhm.
for the chores that we did.
Right.
And really, it was more teaching us how to keep something nice and take care of what we had. And I still to this day, um, appreciate that. Not only was I working for something or working towards a goal, but I also was compensated and learning like, hey, just because we sweep the parking lot because it helps it look better and wants people to come and see us, right? We wash all these windows because we want people when they come in to look at it and it be shiny and nice and a place that they would want to actually come into. So my dad was really great about teaching us things, making it fun, but also having this opportunity to learn more than just the skill of washing a window or
Yeah.
using a broom, right?
Okay.
Um, and I would say fast forward a little bit. My parents own a flower shop. They still have a flower shop as well.
Hmm.
And I'm not a designer. I did not get that gene at all. I am not great at looking at stuff, but my sisters were. And my dad also looked into me and was like, look, you're not, and didn't ever say like you're terrible at it, but he was just like, look, I really need a driver, someone who can,
Yeah. Something.
deliver these flowers, do it well, do it with a smile,
Right.
and I was like, I'm your gal. Like it was so
Yeah.
exciting to me because
Yeah.
it was hard to realize that I wasn't
Hmm.
great at that, even though my siblings were. And if you have siblings, you know what I'm talking about. Like there's just that competition, right?
Yeah, there is
And
that.
that my dad saw that I was like struggling with, being great like they were at designing. And yeah, so I guess he would maybe say I was the best dang driver he ever had. Part of that was I was 16 and drove really fast, but I also created looking at my dad working in the business and how he worked with people and connected with people. I mean,
Mhm.
I would sing happy birthday to people when I drop off the flowers,
Wow.
and just made it fun for people and made it fun for me. And I just appreciate my dad saw that
Yeah.
early that my talent was not designing flowers.
Got so as you're 16 when you're getting all these sales lessons, as you look back on it now, what was the experience of actually going to school like for you? Because a lot of times, and I've said it so many times on the show, the regular listeners are probably tired of hearing me saying it, but the school system conditions you to be an employee. It condition you to just get a salary, get a secure job, and all that. But when you're being taught certain things at the home, there's always that clash where the school system is trying to push you versus where you have the ability to go and know you have the ability to do more.
Think again, I'm just in a unique position because my grandparents were entrepreneurs. It was just something that we talked about was working for yourself. So my environment was definitely different. I will say that I never thought about sales. And another thing is interesting is going to school is my dad was also a politician. So not only was my dad running these businesses, he was also the city councilman for our area.
Okay.
And so there's other things that come with that going to school and having your dad be on TV, right? And so
So you had that
yeah,
dad that was felt.
yeah.
Right. I grew up in a football environment, and there was always that dad was like the booster, that dad that knew everyone, that was the one with the money and all that kind of stuff. So I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I never like had my own name. It was always like you're, my dad's name's
First daughter,
daughter.
so and
Yeah.
so. Right.
Yeah. Okay. Yes, I am.
Yeah.
I'm proud to be that daughter. But
Mhm.
so for me, it was just a little bit different. And honestly, my dad, and as a kid, you just think like why do I need to know this? I remember my dad teaching me one time about like they have a restaurant and we have fry sauce where we live. It's not popular everywhere, but where we are, it is. And
Right.
he was just telling me about like why we have to give so many in the order, right? And I'm like, well, that who cares? Like if they want an extra. And he really taught me like about profit and loss. And I mean, I'm 11 years old trying to figure out how to order stuff. Like, and this is before my dad's old school too, so we didn't use spreadsheets. It was all hand ledger. So
Mm-hmm.
we're writing these things down and figuring it out like how many boxes did we have of one item and how
Right.
many do we need to order. And so it was like a lot of math and figuring out product as far as what was going to waste and how we can get better. Do we need to adjust the menu? Like that's what I was learning about
Mm-hmm.
super young and then still going to school on top of that. But when I was in class it was never like, oh, I didn't ever feel like I was pushed in one way or the other just because
Mm-hmm.
I was so solid in my,
Mm-hmm.
understanding at that point. And I feel like that was super important for me to learn, even though the product I sell is definitely not perishable, but I work with a lot of companies and leaders and managers that do have perishable products.
Right.
So I can help them with that from
Yeah.
long time
Well,
ago.
Well, when you actually decided to kind of leave the nest, so to speak, and go on your own, eventually you came back and started selling stuff for your family, but you were just a salesperson. Then I think you reversed it, and your parents actually started working for you at one point, right? So
My
can you,
mom did. Yeah, it was
yeah,
so
you're
great. I
right,
got to tell my
right.
mom
So
what to do.
I think that's an awesome story. Like that, I think that's everybody's dream, especially if you have parents that were there. Like it's awesome to be able to look up and now look, you tell your mom how to do this and all that. So talk to us a little bit about how that went, like when that transition happened.
I could not wait to stop working for my parents. And
Mhm.
I think that's just what you
And this
do
was
when
right
you
after high school.
this was, yes, right after high school, and I had started college, and I just needed to have a little bit of I don't know, you just get to that. I look back, I was such a I am still a driver, but I just didn't want to listen to what anybody had to say, right? And I probably could have figured some things out knowing that now. So if I'm encouraging any
A
young
lot of us
kids,
have
like,
that at 18. Yes.
yeah, drop some wisdom.
Uh,
Like everyone's like, what would you do back in the day? I'm like, it wouldn't matter because myself would not listen. But and I just kind of felt like I needed to branch out
mhm,
of the nest, right, and not be under my parents' wing because they did little stuff. Like my dad always put gas in our car every
mhm.
Sunday. We'd go to the gas station, fill up all of our cars, 7 cars, right? Fill up all of our cars with gas.
And
And
as
so
parents, sometimes that's something that they do to stay connected. Because as I'm looking at it on this side of life, as my niece and nephew are growing, I'm realizing that there are little things that I would love to hold on to because they're growing so fast. And before you know it, they're going to be adults and no more like little playful kids, no more like looking up to you and things like that. It's going to be those little things that keep you sort of connected. So I resonate with when something as small as filling up gas tanks that could be something that makes his day or makes his world because he knows you guys are going to get big and hey, you're off on your own.
and that we weren't going to call him because we ran out of gas because I did
Because
that
you
all the
ran out of
time
gas.
too.
Right, right, right. Exactly, exactly. Small thing, small
he
thing.
was definitely my lifeline, right? And
Right.
so I actually ended up working my first sales job that I would consider sales because I've sold we when people are coming to the restaurant, you're upselling, bigger sodas and fries or whatever. And even in the floral, it was kind of like, well, hey, if you just spent this little extra, we could do a balloon. Like, so there was always sales. It just didn't feel like sales.
Mhm.
But I started working for the wholesaler that brought my parents their flowers. And I
There
mean,
we go.
she had known me since I was a little kid too, because she had been the supplier. She owned her own company. And my parents were different than her in the sense of like I saw her as like a baller. Like when they say boss babe now, like that was her back
Mhm.
then. She drove a Mercedes, she had the bling, she was
Yeah.
always so nicely dressed. And so it was such a great thing for me to experience. I was 19 when I started working for her
Mhm.
and just like seeing what was possible in a different industry. And she gave
Now she
me
was a wholesaler of the flower shop.
flowers.
Right.
Yes.
So what was her business though? Was it weddings or something?
No, so she provided flowers to all the local flower shops. So
Got it.
she had
Okay.
a big warehouse
Got
that
it.
she would fly in. Now her
Mhm.
sister owned the rose production in Colombia. So where she was getting like a lot of her product, her sister ran. I mean, it was amazing again to have
Yeah.
this exposure
Mhm.
to multiple businesses with women running them.
Right, and
Um
I have to pause you there because I remember I just got back from Trinidad, and these are lessons that you can incorporate whenever. All right, guys, because we went into a grocery store, we were looking for. Yeah, my mom sent us out to go get beers, and instead of going to the actual corner store in which was selling one beer, it was like I'm gonna walk all the way. And this is what she was upset with me about. I walked all the way to the grocery store to make sure we bought the beer wholesale, and it gave me an opportunity to give her a lesson about what the difference between wholesale is and what buying individual is and how you save money and all that kind of stuff. So it's everywhere around us, and you gotta make sure. I cannot stress that enough. You gotta make sure you point out these teachable moments because they're going to last a lifetime and they're going to provide so much clarity for a lot of young people out there.
And again, I'm a stubborn 19-year-old kid, but I also
Yeah.
didn't know what I didn't know.
Mhm.
And if I could go back in time, I would love to have that. Just tell me what to do and I'll do it. But now I have those failures. I have those experiences that it's like, oh, I don't want to do that because that's scary. I already did that and it was terrible. And now, but back then she's like, look, I have 4 shops in this area. I want to grow it. She drove with me one time, introduced me to people, and then after that, it was up to me.
Yeah.
And
There we go.
again, I'm 19, I'm driving a refrigerated truck. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like the big box on the
Yeah,
back.
you got to keep the flowers cool.
Yes, and like just even just driving that as a 19-year-old, like what
Yeah.
trust she must have had in me, right, to
Yeah.
just give me this
Uh-huh.
vehicle that. So and I would drive to these shops, so we would have all the flowers on the back of the truck, and at that time wholesale floral would you would call them, they would
Mhm.
put it in a box and it would come in a box to you. Her philosophy was as fresh as possible, so it was refrigerated and it was in water on the truck, so people could come out on the truck and pick out what they wanted. It was brilliant.
You have to
So
trust you
she
though, because if you make a wrong turn and the flowers go, I mean, oh my, like driving, she must have really trust you for real. Because I
hey
can see a young me, 19 years old, that's maybe, make a sharp turn and all of a sudden, and that's the order, it's supposed to be there that day fresh, then you've lost the client. Like if you
oh,
make
for
a
sure.
wrong turn, you've lost the client.
And it was also, again, going back to being 11 years old and my dad teaching me about perishable items,
Yeah.
right? Rotation, all of that. So, but I would show up at these flower shops. They didn't know me from, anyone else. And I would just say, hey, who you marrying or who you burying today? Because I got what you need. Come on out.
Wow, that's a
You
good one.
know?
That's
Yeah. And I got
horrible.
it from my mom because I heard her say that in the
Yeah.
shop. She's like, all I do is marry and bury. And I'm like, I love it. Let's go with it.
Love
Right.
it. Let's take that.
19.
That's books. That's something. Hey, that's something. You can put that on t-shirt. It's something strong.
And they would come out and
Mhm,
they would get whatever they needed, and eventually I quadrupled that territory. I
mhm,
was the highest salesperson. I beat the person that had been there for years,
mhm,
and it felt really good, not only because I was all those accolades, but honestly it was helping people get what they needed on time. I would have people call me, Heather, can you please bring me back? Like, are you past my shop? I ran out of this. Could you stop by? Absolutely.
mhm.
And learning customer service and
Yeah.
relationship building is what I got from her. Now, I've seen my dad do that. Like every time somebody comes in, even still, my dad still works at the restaurant 52 years later,
Hmm.
right? He's in his 70s, late
Where's the
70s.
restaurant? Let's put a plug out there. You got to make sure we plug the restaurant now.
Oh my gosh, it's called Hook and Ladder. It's in Salt Lake City. It's on California Avenue. You
There
can't
you
miss
go.
it. It's been there for 52 years. It's 800 square feet. It's nothing large. It's
Uh,
just this tiny little
that's
mom and pop
amazing.
place.
That's
My
a
brother runs it now with my
yeah, to
dad.
have it for so long. That is amazing.
But I see him, people come in, it's like, hey man, what's going on? How's it going? And he knows them for forever. Like they'll see us kids in the restaurant. They'll be like, God, you've gotten so big. Where are you at now? Are you still living? It's like people realize who we are, know who we are, and we know who they are. And so that relationship building I saw my dad do, I was now building it in the wholesale side. And
Okay,
then
and
I
then eventually did you just take over the flower shop and run it there?
No, that's where I was like, I'm pretty good at the sales thing. Like,
Mhm,
I feel like I can expand. And I was tapped out where I was. So I worked for the wholesale floral company for a few years, and it was family ran. And I knew I'd never like be able to own and run it.
mhm.
Actually, her son runs it now.
Okay.
And so it was kind of like I'm at my ceiling, so to speak. And so I just started applying and I got a position owning an insurance agency.
Oh,
I'm 23 years old and
yeah.
I
Was that
opened.
all types of insurance, like health
Yep,
and
all types, auto, home, life, commercial. Knew
wow,
nothing about insurance,
wow,
right?
yeah.
Nothing.
Hmm.
And they trusted me with this opening. It was a new company coming into the state,
Hmm.
and I started with them, and I had an absolute blast. I learned a ton.
Yeah.
I was like the number one person really quickly in like the first 3 or 4 months that we were in operation.
Hmm.
And again, not because of, but I just had this network, right? Over the
Yeah.
years, I had networked with people from the restaurant to the flower shop and I utilized that to grow. And then I was leading people as well. I hired people. This is where my mom started working for me. My sister worked for me
Hmm.
um, in the insurance office.
But
It
there is
was
there is a
fun.
genuine connection there because whether again marrying or burying, these are all people that are starting brand new lives or dealing with a change in their situation. And there's a connection between what you sell as an insurance agent if you can build that trust with people. In fact, there have been people on this very show that have sold life insurance and have been a part of insurance that's been really heavy in the insurance sales. And that's what they've said. They've told me, look, I got to figure out how to get to know my people as friends, as not just I'm looking to get a policy off you, but really actually be there for people. And when you look at the years previously of you just going and, getting these flowers to people, making sure they were on point, that probably helped you, even though you didn't know insurance sales per se. But look, I know how to deal with people, and we're going to figure this out.
And that was 100% it. Now I also got my mom who will say she's the worst salesperson in the world, but she is someone that if you walked up to her, like you would just want to know more about her because she's so
Right.
kind and she like welcomed people. Like she'd get up and shake people's hands as they came in. She had that spirit about her. And then there's my sister who's 19, right? So I'm 23. She's
Uh-huh.
me as a 19-year-old sitting there selling policies,
Yeah.
you know, life insurance, buying from a 19-year-old. Can you imagine? Like to these people that have
Right.
families. She doesn't have, she's living with her high school friends, you know what I mean? Like it was so cool to see her develop as well.
Uh-huh.
And sales allowed me to do that. Sales
Yeah.
allowed me to get to know a lot of people. And I would always tell people, look, I wouldn't know you, I
Mhm.
wouldn't have had this opportunity to build this relationship had I not been in that product, right? Or had I not been in this service. And it's really cool to look back now in even some of those relationships of people that I had sold policies to that seeming they're like, oh, we sure miss you,
Mhm.
as an agent. You did such a phenomenal job. And I
Mhm.
was like, gosh, cool. Thank you so much. Right. You
Right.
remember that.
Exactly. And this is important because I do want to make sure we talk about your coaching business as well, because one of the things that happened to me, well, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, I was actually 19 when I got a sales job for Cutco Cutlery, and I was
Oh, I love
selling.
my sister did that.
Yeah, I
So
was selling
good.
kitchen knives. And one of the things that was said throughout the training was like, look, some of you guys, we get it. You don't want to sell kitchen knives your rest of your lives. Even the lady who was kind of like the one you described was like that boss who was walking around in suits and just stepping, like looked like she really had it together. She goes, I never expected to be selling knives for the rest of my life. But one of the things that she explained was just the training involved in this 3-day seminar that you guys are going through is going to carry over to everything that you guys do in life. So when she said that, my antennas went up and I really started taking it seriously. And the reason I'm bringing it up is because you were able to transition and build a business that's much like that training. And I want to give you the opportunity to speak on that a little bit. And when that transition came to where now you're teaching people how to go out and sell product, whether it's upsell, homemaker sets. Now you got me thinking about Cutco,
Coco.
homemaker, ultimate.
I gotta tell you, my sister, I still have my Cutco set. I freaking
Yeah.
love it. Their scissors are the best.
The,
There's a little
the,
plug for
the
them.
shrewds,
Uh,
right? The shrewds. The
yeah, cut a penny.
all that.
It still works. Cut the penny, presentation
At
still
the
works.
penny, the rope, all that, man. Yeah, you bringing back memories, boy. I'm telling you, those were some times. Those were some times. And I was going door to door. I wasn't following the plan. Obviously, I wasn't following the plan the way it should have been, but I'm going door to door. Hey, you want to buy some knives? You want to buy some knives? You want to buy some knives? Which is not the way to do it, but it is what it is.
I mean, hats off to you. Door to door sales is super hard, but you get used to rejection,
Yes.
and get
Bad
used
one.
to like, yeah, people slamming doors in your face, calling you all kinds of
Right,
names.
right. Get the hell off.
Yeah.
I don't want to buy no damn knives.
That exactly.
That
And
was it.
anytime I'm such a sucker when people come to my door, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna answer. Let them do their pitch. I'll give them
That's
some
the favorite.
feedback. I mean, I may or may not buy their product. You know what I mean?
When I
It's
go
like,
through stuff and I see that now, I'm like, I gotta listen because the heart of me, I was him. I am not going to just slam the door in this person's face. It's wrong. It'll be wrong of me.
well, even if you think about the way that's changed from when you were selling it versus now with Ring cameras and like, but people are still out there doing it and people are still buying door to door. It's not dead yet, but there's with all the technology and all the changes, people
Yes.
still are out there hustling, doing
Well,
it and making it work.
yeah, you still need the personal touch because I live in South Florida now, and what got me here was actually a sales job with the Miami Dolphins Foundation. I was a 50-50 raffle ticket seller. And even though there was, it's the Miami Dolphins, there's a huge fan base and all that. I remember talking to a lot of the fans that came to the games to buy raffle tickets. Nothing beats that face-to-face selling. Like nothing beats it to where they saw me every week. And there are people just giving me money without like knowing that they're not gonna win the raffle or whatever, but just having that one-on-one with them changed everything. And they're going online now because of COVID, but before COVID, it was just something where you had to buy it at the actual games because of the concept of we want people to be able to see the person that's selling the tickets. And that's why I ended with like was top. I was one of the top sellers for those 2 seasons I was there. So it is important. I know exactly what you mean when you say that.
And we as human beings need connection.
Hmm.
COVID proved that over and over again. How lonely it was, and people that couldn't see their families. Like, we need that connection, and so face to face is definitely part of sales. And trust. How do you build trust if you don't see that person? Zoom is great because it still feels a little bit personal, but definitely face to face. And so after I grew my agency, and they came to me to be a sales manager, to
Hmm.
teach basically how I got where I was in a different state that they were opening up. So similar model to how they came to our state. And then I moved to Seattle, Washington, actually, to open up there. And I
Okay.
was hiring 1099 people, getting
Oh,
them
okay.
into the
Good.
business,
Nice.
you know, um, absolutely love teaching them how to grow an amazing business
Hmm.
through insurance, and all the benefits of having that, and helping their families. And it's so cool to see people that I hired. I mean, it's been a few years now, and they're still crushing it. They're still living their dreams. They've all had kids now, mostly, and it's so cool to see that transition, but they still
And
have that business.
it's something they could do part-time too, no? Like it doesn't have to be full-time insurance agency, right? Because I remember actually another sales, again, I have a lot of sales stories, but another sales job that
Good.
had at Orange Theory Fitness, there was another seller. He comes up to me, he goes, I might bring you in as an agent with me so we can, sell the gym membership and then maybe sell some health insurance with it. And we never actually materialized, but that's the conversation you have when you're in sales, man. So
Everybody, and if you're good, everybody wants you, right? Like,
right,
which is
right,
super great. Which is
right.
super great. The company I represented, we didn't do part-time. It
Hmm.
was full-time because they had an office, they had staff already for them. Like, we really set them up for success.
Yeah, yeah.
um and then I absolutely love that growth and development, and being able to teach people how to sell, how to get out and network.
Hmm.
A lot of times people think about sales as the hard stuff, right? The rejection, having to make a bunch of calls or knock doors or whatever it is, right?
Right.
But there's a lot of fun that can be had in sales and being involved in the community. I learned that from my dad, for
Hmm.
sure, right? City council, he was, and I mean, our school was across the street from the business, right? And so my dad would get awards while we were sitting in the audience for, like, just being a community member. You know what I mean? He was in the Rotary. Like, so there were things that he taught me about networking that seemed to be fun, because I was driven by accolades. So when my dad was getting an award, I'm like, I could get that too, right? Me and my dad
And
competition a little
that
bit.
actually brings me to another point because we are in an election year. And don't worry, I'm not going to ask you who you're voting for or anything like that. But it's
Thank
important that
God.
you, if you want any politician to do anything for you, the importance of owning your own business and being a seller, that's who any politician is going to like, whether you're Democrat or Republican, because we're the ones creating jobs and creating opportunities to make them look good. My dad would always have it, and he was heavy into politics. He would always say it's corporations taking over, it's the business owners that's really running America. So that's a great point. I'm glad you brought that up as well.
And it's shaking hands and kissing babies. Like, that hasn't changed really much, right? We do want to still be out and know people. That it's, what is it, there's 7 ways to people are connected to 7 people, and then everyone's connected to Kevin Bacon, something like that, right? Like, there's just
Yeah, yeah,
right, there's that theory out there. So
yeah.
you may not be buying from me today, but
Mhm.
7 people that would be potential buyers for me, right? Would be potential people to connect.
Yep.
And I loved that when somebody explained that to me. I'm like, oh, cool. So I get to have more friends, right?
Hmm.
Like, I get to find 7 more friends that I can talk to about what I do. It
Hmm.
was never about, find the lead, find the, somebody to close. It wasn't that for me. It was more of like,
The
cool, I
work.
get to have like this massive friend group, right? I go to
Mhm.
networking and I'm high-fiving everybody, and I know they're having kids and their birthdays, and
Mhm.
it was really just like being able to do what I love, which is like be with people. I absolutely love
Mhm.
connecting and bringing people together and saying, hey,
Right.
you should talk to this person because, or
Mhm.
hey, I heard that this person needs what you sell. Like, you should give them a call. Like, I absolutely just loved that. Right. And so for me, sales wasn't anything but like building a huge friend group. Right. And just getting people to also network with each other.
Yes.
So it was like, hey, we're going to do this. Let's all do it to support each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah, I'm the fifth person selling insurance in this room, and that's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
I just want to be here to support what it is they're doing. And when you give to just give, uh, it's amazing what you receive. I know people like give to get, but my philosophy was just give to give. Like if I can connect you with somebody, I'm not looking at you as a dollar sign anyways. I'm looking at you as someone that I know personally. We see each other always at these events, like you see me in the community, right? And just to serve people for me was important, and that means just connecting for me or helping them. And it's funny how it does come back to you in multiple ways. And some of that is in sales. I found some of the best people to work with,
Mm-hmm.
and hired to work for me through those circles. It wasn't off of all these opportunities to post for jobs. It was through
Right.
my own network. I found these amazing individuals. And so it's not just about getting sales from people, it's about how they can actually help you when you're in need,
Mm-hmm.
for people, or not just a sale, but the, hey, can you help me with this? Or, gosh, my roof is leaking. I know the roofer in the community. I'm going to call them before I open up, Google and do a search. I already
Yeah.
have those connections. Or if somebody
Right.
tells me they need something, I'm like, look, I have four people. This is, the top two, but depending on where you live, these could be the work. So
Mm-hmm.
thinking about how to not just to look across the table and be like, this is a gold mine for me. It's like, this is just somebody I get to hang out with and have fun with, and I know I'm going to serve them, and eventually something will happen from that.
So, like, when it comes to your business, how are you actually servicing people to do that? Because as you can tell, I've had a lot of sales experience, but there was a lot of folks that I've worked for or was underneath that hated what they did. They were going out selling stuff that they genuinely didn't believe in, but they had to do it to get a check, and eventually they went on and moved on to something else. Like, do you address the person that is selling something now and has gotten in the habit of just selling it just for a check but hates it? How do you address that issue?
um Man, I address it as like, why are you here? I
Mm.
am big on address the why with me, right? Simon Sinek, he's great. He wrote a book about
Start with
it.
why. Start with why.
I
Yep.
mean, come on. So it's like, it's a check. Well, I'm telling you right now, especially like that is not the reason that you should be here,
Mm-hmm.
because you're talented. I tell people you're talented. You could
Mm-hmm.
go and work anywhere. Why are you choosing to stay here? You hate it,
Mm-hmm.
right? I'm not going to convince somebody to stay somewhere that they absolutely hate. Number one, it creates a terrible culture for everybody else that's around them,
Right.
right? We don't want to have that Eeyore walking around just crapping on everybody's sunshine. That doesn't serve anybody, and especially the clientele. Is if they're coming into that business as well, and you've got someone like that that's toxic on the team,
Mm-hmm.
it is not working for a lot of people. And can you imagine the manager, right? Like just trying to build everybody up, and then so it's kind of like, why are you here, for a check? Here, look, I've got six connections. I would love to connect you because of your personality and the way you're doing things. This might be a better fit.
Right.
Sales isn't for everybody.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the hard truth. I am not a mortician for many reasons, right? I'm
Mm-hmm.
not a doctor. I'm not a veterinarian. I
Mm-hmm.
am not a school teacher for many reasons, right?
Right.
And sales isn't for everybody either. And I think that sometimes we force people in our recruiting process to be in sales,
Mm-hmm.
and we see it in our success rate of those people. And
Yeah.
I just want to, I love sales and I want to encourage people to get in sales, but there's a few things that you should know, right? Number one, it's not easy. And that's why you get paid well, but it definitely isn't easy. If you can't take rejection over and over and over again, it's probably not for you. Right?
Right.
If you don't know how to organize your money well, it's probably not for you either, because you get these influx of money, but
Mm-hmm.
then you are kind of starving maybe potentially for a few months, or you're not making as much. Like if you don't are not great at money management, it's probably not for you either,
Right.
right? And if you're not organized, you could get 1,000 leads a day, and if you're not organized enough to have a follow-up process, you're
Exactly.
working for free anyways.
Exactly. Right. And it also leads to some very unethical things just to get the sale. I tell the story all the time about a manager I had at LA Fitness when I was in selling memberships for them, where he would tell potential members they don't need surgery. Just, I mean, not any diagnosis. It's just as soon as like we're having a conversation, as soon as the lady mentions a surgery, you don't need it. You don't need it as if he knows, just to get the membership. God forbid something happens where she signs up and, hurts something, makes something a whole lot worse because of how much this lady wanted to get in the gym, but you just wanted your sale so you could look good on the corporate offices and stuff like that. And we'd have those conversations all the time to where he didn't necessarily like doing that job, but he was so good at it. He was making six figures, driving around a sports car, that he's like, look, at this point, I don't have a college education. Didn't really have the confidence to go and jump and do something else. And that's why I think the work you're doing is incredibly important for people to just know you exist. Because a lot of times what people don't know is that there are companies like you, that there are company organizations like yours that teach people how to sell. Like, I think the closest they've gotten into is since Wolf of Wall Street now, Jordan Belfort has kind of put us on the map and stuff like that. But a lot of people don't know that these organizations like yours exist. So, just kind of go into detail a little bit about how the journey you take people on and how you work with them. I guess, when it comes to getting in touch with you and all that kind of stuff, I'll give you the opportunity to speak on it a little bit.
Yes, that's my history and working in sales myself and opening companies and being a leader and working in all of that. I, thought I actually ended up getting a coach myself as a leader because I was struggling with a lot of things and work-life balance, all that stuff. And I thought, gosh, this is kind of cool. So I decided to go actually work for that coaching company. And then when I left there, I started my own, and I get to help people. A lot of times when I'm working with salespeople, it's through their leaders that they connect me. So I'm working with a leader on more management of that leadership role, and then they send me their salespeople to
I got you.
also grow and develop because I know their leader and their qualities and what they're trying to accomplish. And then I also get to work with that salesperson, knowing the culture they're trying to create, knowing their metrics that they're tracking and things like that. So it is kind of an easy handoff for the leader. Plus it is a different voice for that salesperson versus, the leader all the time. And sometimes then the salesperson ends up staying with me longer than the leader, and then they become a leader in their own right. So it's been really fun to help people that way through their leaderships. So I probably coach more leaders than I actually do at this point in my career in sales. But when I first started as a coach, it was all salespeople. So I've definitely learned some really great stuff to help people along the way. And really, when I work with salespeople, it's really determining, where they're getting stuck. So sometimes people are really great out the gate, right? They have that personality. They do
Mhm.
really well. They're great at connecting, but they don't know how to ask for the business that doesn't feel
You're right.
authentic to
Mhm.
them. And so we work on that. Sometimes people are really great about getting all the way to the end of the business, and then they hesitate on asking for future business, or they hesitate on asking to be connected with more people that could use their product or service. And so we work on that. Sometimes it's people, they don't know even where to look for potential buyers.
Mhm.
So we work on that. So sales is something you have to continue to work at. I'm still trying to work on myself. I believe in coaching, so I have my own coach still on that process, and
That-
being better about social
I-
media right now is the big thing for me, right? So I'm like, I've got to get better at how to do this. Well, I don't know much about it as far as like I'm just a user, but how do you actually grow this? Then I hire somebody. So I would say if you're in sales and you're looking to grow, maybe you've hit a ceiling for yourself, or maybe you're not sure if you should transition to leadership. A lot of times companies, you probably witnessed, they take their highest producing salespeople and turn them into leaders. And
yeah.
that doesn't mean they're great leaders. It just means they were really great
Exactly.
at sales.
Exactly. It is that I'm glad you said that, because it doesn't just translate into now you're able to manage people. It's just like even in sports, when you have a great athlete who tries to become a coach, it's because your mindset, like you're expecting a certain player to have the talent that you had and have the work ethic that you have. And it's just not, it's a rare thing. So it's important that you make that distinction as well. What is the what's the best way for people to reach out if they want to hear more, if they want to get in touch with you and all that stuff?
My website's great. And you can just put that in the chat. I can send
Mhm.
it to you. And then they can also follow me on TikTok. And I'll put that in the chat as well so that
Right.
they can have that.
Well, we're talking on Zoom, but it's going to be in the show notes, not in the chat, guys. So,
Sorry.
yeah.
You can
It's
tell what I use mostly. I'm like, I put it in the chat.
put it in the chat. Yeah, we're on it. I get what you're saying, but for the listeners, it's going to be in the show notes how you get in touch with
Show
them.
notes.
If you are wanting, then I strongly urge you to look more into what she's doing, especially in your business, regardless of what it is you're selling. Notice that when she was speaking about who she helps, there was never anything about specifically what you sell. It was only about development, relationships, human, personal, and professional development. So, whatever it is you're selling, it is important to get a coach so you understand what metrics are, how to track these metrics. And just because you're getting a bunch of likes on social media does not mean you're getting paid. Like that, those are vanity metrics. We're talking about metrics that lead to receipts, actual receipts and transactions. So,
Well, and back to your why, right?
yeah,
Like, so when you're doing it well and you're encouraged to do it
exactly.
and you're starting to see those successes, it does equal money in the bank, right? Which is we all have to have that. That's never going to go away. But it's like okay, now that you get that and you see what works, you're going to want to do it more. So
Yeah,
maybe you didn't
yes.
want to have to like make those calls or go and see those many people, but
Right.
now you've been able to see that result quicker
Yeah.
than you have before. Of course, you're going to want to do it more.
Exactly.
That's the goal too. Is right when we're excited about something,
Mhm.
we want to do it more and have that feeling again and learn along the way, right? We're still going to fall on our face. We're going to have mess ups. We're going to have people go all the way to the finish line and then say no, right? Even though we were counting those commissions, like all that stuff's still going to happen. But when you
Right.
figure out what works for that one person and see them be successful, they're more likely to continue. And when they're successful, they're more successful at home. They're, not telling kids how bad they hate their jobs and work sucks. And like now we're creating this culture of people not wanting to work because it sounds terrible. And then of course when there's no financial pressure or less financial pressure, it allows a person to be a little bit more free and things as far as that stress is gone. So being
Right.
successful in sales is not just the money, it actually is in you can give
Across
more
the
to
board.
charity, you can give more to other things too.
Across the board. So the way I close out all the shows, Heather, is I want you to use your imagination a little bit. You are 16 years old. You're driving around, giving flowers. You're buried and married. The whole thing. You're back to that young teenage girl. Pretend she's coming to the Zoom room. Give her some words of encouragement, and we'll officially close.
Never stop being who you are at the core.
Mm.
So just because the image out there says that you should look a certain way, act a certain way, be on the platform, you still got to represent you the best way that you can authentically. Because and as a young kid we're influenced by so many things, and I didn't have the influences that these kids do now with social media and access to, I mean, even videos and movies and stuff, right? Real
Right.
quick on the phone. And I
Yep.
would just say, be your authentic self. You are so wonderfully made,
Mhm.
and you have talents inside of you, and you know what they are. Don't let anyone tell you that they're not good enough, that you're not capable enough. My dad calls me his most capable child, and at
Mhm.
first I was like, what the heck does that mean, right? And honestly, it's something that I realize, yes, I am capable of doing many things and many things well. So I would say be your authentic self, be your true self, and don't follow the fad because it'll run out, but you're still going to be who you are, and never question those deep things that make you who you are and what people are drawn to.
Yes. Nothing to add. I love that. And as I normally tell you guys, the reason I close out the show with that is because even though I say talking to herself, it's really just to you. If you are going through these things, especially nowadays with technology and the way it works, it's important that you really get a core, get an understanding of who you are at your core and move, let those inner voices direct you on your next path because the distractions are clearly there and you do not want to be a victim of those distractions. So all that being said, fellow teammates, continue to move swiftly. We will talk more soon.
Awesome. Thank you so much.